When your hair does whatever it wants. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Very first video of October 2020. The way this year has gone, I'm surprised that we made it. Today we're going to talk about the stages of migraine. I don't know if it's stages or phases, but we're talking about the stages of migraine. There are 4 of them. Most people see just phase 3, the attack phase, as the migraine, but there's actually much more to it than that. So for this video, I'm going to tell you about some of the symptoms that can happen in each of the phases, or stages. And yes, only some of the symptoms. This is definitely not an exhaustive list. This is a long time coming. Again, I keep saying that like every video. I can't believe it took me until now to do this. My memory is awful, so I'm going to pull it up on my computer. Phase 1 is called the PRODROME. It can last anywhere from a few hours to a few days. I like to affectionately see the PRODROME as migraine PMSing. You can get depressed, anxious, irritable. You can crave certain foods, have difficulty concentrating, hard time reading, hard time speaking. You can also get constipation or diarrhea, increased need to urinate, difficulty sleeping or yawning a lot, but along with that comes some fatigue, some muscle stiffness. You can also start getting some more classic migraine symptoms like nausea or sensitivity to light and sound. According to the American Migraine Foundation, well, all of this is according to the American Migraine Foundation, most people with migraine do experience a prodrome, but not necessarily before every single migraine. It's also known as the pre-headache or the premonitory phase, and for a lot of people, some of these warning signs mean that they should take their abortive now. Take their triptan, usually triptan, now. In general, the earlier you can take your abortive, the more effective it's going to be. Like I mentioned at the beginning though, the prodrome can literally last a few days. So if you're trying to ration your triptans because you can only take 10 a month, prodrome isn't always enough of an indicator that you should go ahead and do that. The symptoms of prodrome are also just really generic, like, okay, yeah, feeling tired and irritable. That happens to all of us sometimes. Doesn't always mean that you're going into this crazy migraine attack. So that's why having a migraine alert dog has been so life-changing for me. It's like finally something definitive. Phase 2 is the aura phase, and it can last anywhere from 5 to 60 minutes. Although, to be honest, I feel like all this stuff can sort of overlap with each other. You can definitely have auras all the way through your attack phase. It's all a little bit mushy. The typical generic aura is flashing lights, zigzag lines, geometric shapes, the arc pattern, colorful lights, blurriness, double vision, just visual disturbances in general. But the aura phase doesn't have to necessarily be visual disturbances. It can also be other things, like language problems, like the ones that I'm having now filming this because I'm in prodrome. It can be numbness and tingling in other parts of the body, and if you are interested in aura in particular, I made a whole playlist. I will link it up here. It's 4 videos long, and it goes a little bit more into depth about different auras. Let's go back to the thing I said about this being kind of mushy. The information I'm giving you today, I already mentioned, is from American Migraine Foundation. But the other video that I made about the migraine auras, I was using a different source. It might have been Mayo Clinic. I don't really remember. I say it in the video. Point is, that previous source put all of these things into the aura phase. It seems like American Migraine Foundation sees some of it as more of a prodrome situation. I'm looking at my laptop, by the way. I'm not doing weird stuff. So while I can definitively say these things across both sources are like pre-attack phase symptoms, I also don't want to come on here and be like, oh yeah, this is definitely aura or this is definitely prodrome. It seems like nobody actually knows. So I highly recommend that you watch that series. A wealth of information, and it's not worth trying to get back into that right now. By the way, I did do really crappy digital renderings of my visual auras, so if you watch this video, you can see those. Bad job, but does get the point across. For those who do get auras, even though they're very annoying and they can be debilitating, they really disrupt your day because you suddenly can't see, for example, or you can't move, or can't speak, or can't understand, or you get uncomfortable tingles. Ugh, hate it. Where was I going? Oh yeah, as annoying as those things are, it's also a surefire sign that your attack phase is coming, and if you want to abort this migraine, right now is the time. And if you don't get migraines and you don't know what I'm talking about when I say you might want to abort your migraine, why wouldn't you want to abort every migraine? Because you physically can't. The abortives are really aggressive. You're only allowed to use 10 per month. They don't even prescribe you enough to dose yourself 10 times per month. Insurance doesn't even usually cover enough for you to do 10 doses per month. That's the situation we're in. You can get rebound migraines, you can get medication overuse headaches. So yeah, you don't always want to abort your migraine. Phase 3, the famous one, the headache phase. And I don't want to be the word police, but for a lot of people it doesn't include a headache. So a more umbrella term for it is the attack phase. This is the one that everybody knows about. This phase lasts for 4 to 72 hours, although it can also be much, much longer. Yay. Symptoms include throbbing, drilling, burning head pain, often on one side of the head, but can be both. The feeling of an ice pick in your head, nausea that can lead to vomiting, sensitivity to light, sound, and smell. You can get depressed or anxious, but you can also get really giddy, which uncontrollable giggling when you're in that kind of pain, it's up there with vomiting, sneezing, coughing. Really, it can hurt a lot. You can also get nasal congestion and again that neck pain, stiffness in neck and traps. A majority of women say that the pain of a severe migraine attack hurts more than childbirth. That's really good news for me because I'm going to be giving birth in a few months for the first time. So in a way I've been training for this. But also for those of you who are suffering with migraines, just know that your pain is totally valid. It is extremely high pain. Migraines and one of the most painful things that humans naturally go through, the childbirth process. It turns out they actually are comparable. Oh, check out my bump. Ooh. The last phase is the postdrome. Postdrome is the phase that I was in when I started filming that video last week, Migraine Jen's Rules for Life. You can tell in the beginning of that video I'm a little bit slow, I'm having difficulty concentrating. Maybe you can't tell, but I had a ton of cuts in the beginning of that video. I was having so much trouble getting into it, and that's because I woke up in postdrome. The main symptoms of postdrome are inability to concentrate and lack of comprehension, in addition to fatigue, depressed mood, or even a euphoric mood. I don't know if I mentioned body aches, but it can feel like you have the flu too. In my eyes, postdrome is definitely a hangover. Postdrome is literally the worst. And when I say literally, I sort of mean literally because sometimes it's literally worse than the attack phase for me. When I'm in postdrome, I am super foggy, I'm extremely exhausted, and I can be super, super depressed. And I'm talking like, don't see a point in getting out of bed, don't want to eat, don't even want to pet the dog, ultra depressed. It feels like a very delicate stage. It feels like you could re-trigger that migraine at any moment. So a lot of people find relief during that phase by doing like yoga or meditation, drinking lots of water, trying to replenish food and fluids that you may have lost during your attack phase. That kind of stuff. You still do need to be really careful to avoid those big migraine triggers when you're in your postdrome. Just like the aura phase, not everybody who gets migraine attacks gets this phase, but unlike the aura phase, most people do get this one. I think it's possible that a lot more people get prodrome and aura phase and just don't realize it. I think maybe those two phases could be underreported. But postdrome, I would be shocked if postdrome was underreported. It's just really easy to identify. You had a migraine attack, the attack phase is over, now you're really tired. Crazy hair, crazy hair. And just one more thing that I think is super important to reiterate, every migraine attack is different. Every person who experiences migraine attacks can have totally different symptoms, and the symptoms can even vary within the same individual, from migraine to migraine, from month to month, from trigger to trigger. There is huge variation, and it makes it very difficult to track and manage your migraine attacks. If there was more consistency between attacks, I think it would be easier for people to recognize the different phases of their attacks and what they like during each of those phases. But the way things vary so much, it's just really difficult to do that. It's hard to know how to manage and treat this disease, but It's important that we recognize that the symptoms are not just you get a bad headache and then the headache goes away. You're not crazy if you feel like you're PMSing leading up to your migraine, and you're not crazy if you're hungover afterwards. In fact, you're very normal, and I hope that my channel is continuing to show you that. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. If you haven't seen that Aura series, you should probably go check it out. And if you haven't seen any footage of me during a complex migraine attack that was low pain but really high confusion and other symptoms, I highly recommend checking out the Migraine Gen cooking vlog. You can see how difficult it was for me to do something as simple as making taco meat. See you again next time, guys.